Morning, all. All right, it is still morning here, just by a little less than an hour, but it's still technically morning. So let's go ahead and start things off with the news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet. A lot of logos on the board, a lot to talk about. Most of it injury related, which is kind of standard during the hockey season. So Nick Ehlers has been placed on IR by the Winnipeg Jets. That hurts. The team has had its struggles recently, and having Ehlers out of the lineup will hurt. However, this is a chance for Brad Lambert. He gets recalled from the AHL, so maybe Lambert gets into some action, and we'll see what he can do at the NHL level. It has certainly been a bit of a wait for Brad Lambert, but that wait apparently has paid off, and at this point, he's going to get a shot at showing Winnipeg fans and management and players what he can do. A lot of talk out there about JT Miller, and I find it really interesting how quickly people assume JT Miller should be traded, needs to be traded, is going to get traded. And this goes back years. Like this is crazy to me. I think it really is that JT Miller is, sort of a grumpy type, and people know this. And so there's going to be that assumption that, well, since he's on leave right now, he probably doesn't want to be a Canuck anymore. And all the reports locally have been he is on a journey of his own where he is working on things that are to do with himself. And that when he comes back, and the plan is for him to come back as soon as he feels he's able to, he'll be in a better place to be a really good teammate to his fellow Canucks and go out there and play his best. So I haven't heard anything from anybody who I would consider to be, a really solid source that Miller's looking to get out. I'm sure there might be teams calling the Canucks on JT Miller. I would be very surprised if JT Miller actually wanted to trade out of Vancouver or if the Canucks were looking to move him. We know from last season that when JT Miller is in the right headspace and when he's playing well, he's one of the best players in the league. So, yeah, Miller is temperamental. We know this. It might be part of the reason why he hasn't stayed with one organization. Goes through Tampa, goes through the Rangers. Now he's with Vancouver, but I don't see any reason to think that Vancouver's going to move him. I think the fact that Vancouver's had a pretty good record while he's been out has helped too. I think if the team just crashed without him, there might be more discussion and speculation. It doesn't necessarily mean there's anything more than discussion or speculation, though. So I haven't seen anything to tell me that JT Miller's time in Vancouver is coming to an end anytime soon. I just wanted to put that out there. Carey Price has been placed on LTIR by the Montreal Canadiens so that they can activate Patrick Laine for tonight. Laine will play against the New York Islanders. He is finally in the lineup for the Montreal Canadiens. So we'll see what he does if he's able to turn things around for them. It has been a rough season for them thus far, and the expectations of many, myself included, were that they'd at least be better than last season, and it hasn't happened so far. But maybe getting back Laine, maybe that will help the attack and bolster other parts of the roster as well. Gary Bettman. So we'd heard that they were going to start talks about the next collective bargaining agreement in the new year, and they are looking at February, around the time that the Four Nations tournament gets going, as the perfect time to get those discussions going. So Gary Bettman's been going around to owners and management types and getting feedback from them on what they'd like to see in the next collective bargaining agreement. The players have been getting canvassed by Marty Walsh as well, the head of the NHLPA. The thing that I find interesting is an article I was reading on this today. The one thing that I saw people talking about was, well, they got to change the playoff format. The playoff format needs to change. If the biggest complaint the fans have about hockey right now is, well, you got to go back to 1 versus 8 in the playoffs, that's pretty good because hockey fans have had over the years complaints about various things in the game. So that's a pretty good start. That's the biggest complaint is the playoff format. So, and again, I've mentioned this before. I'll mention this here. The playoff format became what it is in part because of advertisers and networks wanting to have a good idea of who's going to face who, and they really wanted the rivalry matchups as well. You can sell the Capitals Penguins against each other year after year after year. If it was, say, the Capitals and the Lightning, it doesn't quite have the same ring to it. I know that for us as hockey fans, we really don't necessarily care who's against who as long as there's a look of fairness to who gets to face who and what the seedings are. but for the networks, they wanted to know ahead of time. And with 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, everything, you don't necessarily know who's facing each other in the next round until we get further into the round. So, at any rate, that's why it is where it is, and I haven't heard anything from the players or from the NHL to tell me that things are going to change. And when you look at what might be a stumbling block, expansion fees might be a stumbling block if the NHLPA thinks billions of dollars more is going to come in through the owners. I'm not sure how that would work though, because that'd be a one-time payment. So it's not like you can boost the cap for that $1 billion that, let's say, 500 million of that goes to the players. You'd boost it for that one season, and then it could technically drop the following season, couldn't it? But at any rate, they'll sit down, they'll figure it out. And I'm very happy about that because the NHL has a bad track record of waiting until the last minute to discuss the next CBA. So discussing it about a year and a half before it expires makes me feel pretty good about the idea that we're going to avoid any kind of labor disruption in the National Hockey League. It'd be a terrible time to have any kind of labor disruption. Zuccarello has been placed on the LTIR by the Minnesota Wild. Lauko and Brodin are on injured reserve, and so they've called up Ogren and Wallstead. So Wallstead's been recalled, apparently not necessarily going to Minnesota. There's salary cap reasons for this and everything in terms of who they called up and when. And so Ogren's probably going to end up in the lineup for them soon. I can't guarantee he'll be in the lineup for them tonight against Vancouver, but it does mean that Vancouver's against a Minnesota team that's a little beat up right now. So we'll see how that game goes tonight. Drieger's been recalled by the Florida Panthers, and not for any alarming reason. So they're going on the road for 2. Bobrovsky's staying home because his wife is expecting a child, and so he wants to be there when the kid's born. Don't blame him for that. And so, yeah, Drieger's been recalled, and with Knight and Drieger as the tandem in Florida until the baby is born, that should be fine. In a corresponding move, Samaskevich has been sent down to the AHL, not because he's playing badly or anything, but because the team has to stay salary cap compliant. So Drieger comes up, Samaskevich goes down, and all the best to Bobrovsky on his new child. That's really good news. Max Domi, lower body injury for him, of course. He's at practice. He's getting close to a return. And Pacioretty's in a similar position. It feels like Pacioretty's a ways behind Domi in terms of date where they're going to return to the lineup. But it does sound like Domi shouldn't be out for much longer at all for Toronto. Toronto, of course, very solid record without Domi. Same as they had a very solid record without Matthews. They're just humming along right now. And it shows how well Toronto has done in terms of building up their depth over the years. So good for Toronto on that. Jake Gensel dealing with an undisclosed injury. He was unable to finish practice, and apparently he's being evaluated. So we'll see if he's in the lineup for their next game or not. Gensel, of course, the big addition for them as a free agent in the offseason. And so if they're going to be without Gensel for any period of time, that's going to hurt their overall team. But we don't know how long he's going to be out or even what he's dealing with here. Cody Glass, who's had a concussion, is off IR for the Pittsburgh Penguins. St. Ivany has been sent down to the AHL since Glass is off IR, and you've got to make room for him on the 23-man roster. Cam Talbot for the Detroit Red Wings, dealing with a lower body injury, is expected to miss at least the next 3 games. He pulled himself out of that game against Vancouver, and apparently it's not a minor injury. And the way that it was, it just looked like maybe he tweaked something. So, groin probably. I'm thinking lower body injury, probably some kind of a pull there. But anyways, all the best to Talbot. Hopefully he's not out more than the next 3 games. Good news for Canes fans today. Kochetkov is expected back tonight. He's been dealing with a concussion, of course. He's expected back tonight to play against the Seattle Kraken. Without Kochetkov, Spencer Martin held down the fort as well as you could hope that he would as a number 3 goaltender. And they won some games as well with Martin in net. Of course, they had a rough couple of games against Florida. I don't know if Kochetkov's in the net, if anything would have been different in those games against Florida, but getting him back is definitely good news. Also, Dustin Tokarski clears waivers so they can send him down to the AHL without any concerns, and that definitely helps and bolsters their depth in the net. So an interesting note here in terms of Team Canada's selection process for this year's World Juniors. 4 of the top 9 in the 2024 draft not on Team Canada's roster for the World Juniors. Now, there are some that are saying, well, I don't understand how these guys don't make it. I look at that as a way of to say, I look at that as a way to say there's depth in Team Canada for the World Juniors, and those guys just didn't make the cut. Am I surprised guys like Parek didn't make it? A little bit, but it definitely shows that Team Canada had a lot of quality options, and so seeing that so many top prospects from this past draft didn't make it isn't necessarily a huge surprise, but let me know your thoughts as to which players that weren't selected for Team Canada's World Junior squad you're surprised by. Is it Yekemchuk from the Ottawa Senators draft this year? Yeah, let me know your thoughts. Seneca was another one, too, that didn't get picked. Kuzmenko, a healthy scratch tonight for the Calgary Flames against Columbus. Anytime he was a healthy scratch for Vancouver was always a discussion point. Kuzmenko this year just has one goal. It's a power play marker. And for Kuzmenko, he's a popular player. The fans love him, but there definitely seems to be something in his game that causes him to get scratched every year. Tocchet scratched him last year before the trade. I remember fans not being happy about that. Boudreau scratched him the year before that. Remember, fans weren't happy with that. And again, it's because he's a very personable, nice, likable guy, but he does keep getting scratched. So we'll see how many games he's out, but it means Pelche's in the lineup for Calgary. So we'll see how Pelche does. He gets his chance, and it might be his final chance, at least for Pelche, to show what he can do, because once Calgary gets healthy again, you want to make sure you're not the one they're sending down. So we'll see how things go for them against Columbus tonight. Chayka clears waivers. Vegas put him on waivers yesterday for the purpose of contract termination. So his contract is done, and he is now a UFA. In most cases, when somebody gets waived for contract termination during the season, it's because they're headed overseas to play hockey over there. And all the best to Chayka in his future endeavors in the hockey world and wherever he ends up. So I'm sure that at the time they waived him yesterday, he knew where he was going. And so all the best to him. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.